Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is Lee Barron. Lee, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
There's a boom in pipelines, gas pipelines, oil pipelines. Why is that happening?
I believe that most of the oils that are pipelines being run and oils that are being extracted are for overseas sales.
And we're even seeing it around here, though. This gas pipeline that's being proposed by TransCanada coming under the Potomac River to Mountaineer Gas pipeline that's being proposed here that will take it east. And there's a lot of opposition to it, to this pipeline. What are your thoughts? And you helped start the Town of Bath Community Garden here. What are your thoughts on having a gas pipeline cutting through the middle of Morgan County?
I believe it's high-risk behavior. I'm a firm believer that industrial and residential do not mix well. There's been too many recorded incidents of mishaps that once they happen, the damage is done. So I say let's minimize damage by not continuing the process.
And the other thing that's happening, the country and the world is moving towards an alternative energy world.
Yes.
And it's not a question of technology. We have the technology to get there. It's a question of political will to do it. And so a lot of people think that this push towards pipelines, gas, fossil fuel pipelines, is sort of like a last-ditch desperation effort to stave off the inevitable. And that's why we're seeing them. But we're also seeing a lot of resistance here in Morgan County. And what's fascinating to me is there was a lot of interest in Morgan County about helping the people resisting the pipelines out west, both the Keystone Pipeline that's cutting through the middle of the country and the DAPL pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline. And you also took an interest.
Yes, I did.
And what drove you to take an interest? What was it that made you go out to Standing Rock?
I needed to see for myself what was going on. I had some interest previous, but then media coverage started picking up and started seeing videos about what was happening. And so down in my heart of hearts, I wanted to go and do something to help. So I more or less represented Morgan County. I had a lot of support, people supplying money, and I loaded my truck up with firewood and food and so forth, and traveled out to North Dakota to act as a supply line.
When did you go?
I went just before Christmas.
And how long did it take you to get there?
3.5 days.
And what was the scene when you got there?
Scene was very busy, a lot going on. It was a warmer day, so there was a lot of mud. It was a hill that was descending down to the floodplain. Continuous supplies going in and out, trucks and cars and so forth. I only had 2-wheel drive, so I stayed at the top, and someone with 4-wheel drive came up and we loaded and took it down the hill. But it was a camp in the process of being created with a community school, with a structure where they could cook food and also feed people, and lots of residents.
How many people were at the camps? How many camps were there? There were 2 camps?
There were basically 2 camps when I arrived. There was originally 3. I was at Sacred Stone, and there was approximately, I would say, 200 to 300 people there.
And how many at the other camp?
Unsure.
And this was at the low point, right? Because there were a lot more people at both camps before, or no?
That's correct. People started leaving once it started getting cold.
Now, the background of this was Dakota Access Pipeline proposes this pipeline. It was effectively stalled during the last administration, but then green-lighted recently. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so I guess the bottom line is the resistance failed to stop this pipeline. It's going in now.
It failed to stop the line, but I'm positive in this way is that it brought a lot of awareness on a global scale about what's going on and the danger it is to our natural water supplies.
How many people went from Morgan County to Standing Rock? Do you know?
There were 3 of us that I know of.
And it was separate trips, right?
Well, 2 people went together on his second trip.
Okay.
And he did one trip alone, and I did one trip alone.
Of the people at Standing Rock, how many were could you tell how many were Native American?
I'd say probably 20%.
And the rest were people from outside the community?
All over.
From all over
the country.
And probably all over the world also.
There was an international flavor, yes.
And what lessons, because there's active resistance here against TransCanada and Mountaineer Gas, what lessons that you learned there could apply here in terms of people resisting a pipeline?
Above all, to remain peaceful. That should be our position, and to keep a clean and respectful environment where we live. Or camp.
Did you see that there?
I did not. The point at which I arrived was just one day prior, actually the same day, the veterans started coming in. And there was a different flavor, I'm sure. So my perspective, keep in mind, was just prior to a big confrontation with the military, ex-military being there, and there was a lot of preparation. There was numerous things happening all at once. I would say, ask the question again.
Well, lessons that could be learned from Standing Rock here, that was one question, but the other question was peaceful versus less peaceful action.
I would say we need to take more of a position of peaceful action.
And was it something about the encampment, or do you think that that pipeline was going through anyway because of the relative imbalance of resources? I mean, on the one side you had pretty much a military force that was going to push through the pipeline. And on the other side, you had regular people, Native Americans, people who want to resist with music and chants. And I mean, is that destined to being pipeline going through? Or do you think that that kind of resistance can stop a pipeline?
That's a good question, yet to be answered. I believe it's time for us to give it voice, as the normal person would, to take a stand and make our voice heard. And how's that going to roll out? I don't know.
You were driven to go there and see.
Yes, I felt compelled to go.
And is that because you were watching the news and you wanted to see if the news was accurate, or why exactly did you go? Or did you feel that you could help stop it?
I was going on as a support person with a view that I could possibly help them build camp. I also really, all the answer is yes. I wanted to see from my own eyes what was actually happening and have the experience. Was the media accurately representing what was going on? Yes, they were. I didn't see anything to tell me otherwise. I met some really fine people, people that knew how to organize labor. Like I was saying, everyone seemed to be playing their part up there. There was those who were just sorting through material. The kitchen was outstanding. The people were putting together meals. Again, they were offering free food. So the whole experience, I came away with I think a better understanding of how we can have a peaceful protest.
Yeah. You know, there's a famous cartoonist from 50 years ago or so who did a cartoon, and it's this little guy contemplating the world, and this inscription is, "We have met the enemy, and he is us." And I'm wondering if, I'm sensing from what you're saying, and you're not saying it explicitly, that in these citizen movements, there's a lot of internal problems that get in the way of success. And
that's true.
And that we have to be wary of that in creating resistance to these kinds of pipelines.
The most important thing is that we remain united together. is that we understand the importance of us staying together as a group and not letting anything divide us. That's paramount. That's the most important thing. One of the things that happened there is the unity began to break down. Some of that was from within, and I think some of it was created from without. But once that happens, it starts to disintegrate, and then we don't have a strong representation.
Given what you know of the political situation here in West Virginia, what are the chances of resisting this pipeline?
I think we started on a good foot, and if we continue, actually, I'll be honest with you here. In my heart of hearts, I suspect the pipeline will go through. But in the end, I think all of us have to ask, would we do ourselves a service and do our community a service if we did nothing? I think it's very important that we give our voice, and that's what we need to do.
Right.
I would hope that it would be a different picture.
Well, you never know what's going to happen. That's
No,
the other thing.
you don't.
And so you keep trying and see what happens. And just a couple more minutes, but I wanted to emphasize this: that this is TransCanada is a multinational corporation that has a bad reputation because of what they tried to do and still trying to do in Nebraska, cutting through, using eminent domain to cut through farmers and ranchers' land.
Yes.
So they already, in the public's mind, have a poor reputation. There's a poor reputation also in terms of track record on explosions and leaks and all that. And they're coming up they're coming under an iconic river and C&O Canal. And so that already people are sensing this is a bad deal. And from our work together on this pipeline that almost 70% or 80%, we heard recently, of the people along the pipeline route are opposed to it. So it's a good basis to start and try and defeat it. And there's good energy behind it, but I agree with you. The odds are against us because of what you saw firsthand, the militarization of the government and the pipeline companies. So the odds are against us, but I think there's a good chance that the resistance, you never know what's going to happen, and you never know how it's going to play out.
The best thing I can offer as an individual and as a group is that the oil company is still consumer driven. They cannot be in existence unless we buy fuel, unless we buy oil generated products. So the less that we buy their products, the better off and the better chance we have. It's a peaceful part of the protest, but we have to look hard at our habits and how we create our lifestyle to say, can we cut back on our use of fossil fuels? To a point, and I do believe the U.S. is destined to become an alternative, more eco-friendly energy source than fossil fuel. I agree with you earlier that you said this is a last-ditch effort. That's so. We will become using solar, using wind, using water turbine to develop our power sources.
Right.
It's only a matter of time.
And there is a professor at Stanford University who's laid it out for each state on how each state can get to a non-fossil fuel economy by 2040, 2050. And the technology is there. It's just a question of, and it'll happen eventually. Just a question of how quickly it happens, because it has to be, for all kinds of reasons, it has to be sooner rather than later.
And to minimize the damage in the meantime to the environment.
Right, and that's why we're trying to stop this pipeline, because of the damage that can be done, the damage that we see in the record of TransCanada and these other companies.
That's correct. The way I understand, there's 2 or 3 incidents per week now of ruptures, explosions, thus and such, as I've been researching on the internet.
Correct.
So the frequency of incidents seems to be going up.
Yep. And if people want to get involved, it's Eastern Panhandle Protectors. Just type that in websites and places for people to go.
Yes.
Can do that. And we'll be seeing each other on the front lines of that fight. Thank you, Lee Barron.
You're welcome.
And thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.